Hello, welcome back. So tonight we're going to paint another cat. Here he is. Nice cat sitting on an orange blanket or sheet or something. I don't know. Anyways, here I've got my drawing pre-sketched out, and I'm just going to drop in some color. I'm going to start by just putting in some color, an undercolor on this guy, just a tint. We're going to come back and put several layers on, but everywhere I can see just kind of a light brown. This is actually kind of a terracotta that I have on my palette. Everywhere I can see a little bit of light brown on that picture. I'm just going to dab in a little bit of color here and there, letting the paint do what it wants to do. And we're going to come back and paint over it later, and maybe a couple of times. We'll see how that goes. Okay, I've mixed up a light gray. Going to use it as an undertone for the base of the body of this cat. Here we go. Just a touch of orange, a pinkish orange inside the ear. Right back to my gray. Putting down some base color wherever I think it needs to go. Just dropping it on there. Right around those eyes. Down onto his mane. There we go. I'm leaving his chin white. Going to leave a little light next to the dark. Going to put dark underneath his chin, and hopefully we'll get some clear definition underneath there. There we go, just like that. And pulling out with my brush. I want to leave a ragged edge, so when I come back later, it's easier to paint individual hairs in there, or the indication of some hairs anyways in there. Okay, here we go. Let me get a little bit more paint on there. This is our same gray paint, but a little more, a little fuller, a little darker. I'm going to put on a couple of lines here, some striping on this cat's face. There we go. I just want to get some undertones on here. We're going to come back and put all this, put some paint on over top of this a little bit later. Okay, I'm going to paint his arm now. I want it to be just a little darker, maybe a little more intense. His arm is a little closer to us than his head is, so just a slight bit more. And here we go. Of course, it should be a little darker on the underside of it too. Let's not forget that. On his right arm, I've got a little bit of banding on there. So I'm going to start with that. Hope we can get kind of an edge with that. There we go. A little bit of an edge. So we can still see that even though we've put some other paint around it. Good, good, good. Here we go. Right on down. That paw is just stretched way out there. Good, and you can see there he's looking good. He's coming to life. I've got to do his backside there. So we're just going to drop some paint on. I have made this gray just a bit bluer than the gray in the rest of the cat's body. I just dabbed in a little bit of ultramarine into the same gray I've been using. You can see it just looks ever so slightly different, and I don't want to have such a hard edge on the back there. I want it to be just a little blurry because it is out of our field of vision just ever so slightly. It's not the focal point of our painting, so I want it to kind of disappear back there just a little bit. All right, mixing up some more gray. Here, the gray on his head has all but dried now. I can go in and start adding in a few details here and there. There we go, right on down the top of his head. And his stripes. There we go. A little bit on his nose. Just trying to make both sides look similar. I don't necessarily need to make them look exactly the same, but similar. And I'm going to fill in with some other colors in here. There we go, to just connect some of these spaces. Good, good, good. He's coming together. All right. Now that mane is a big one. It's a lot of hair underneath there. So we're going to try to show that off. There we go, by making it dark right underneath his chin and pulling out to the edge. All right, I've lightened my gray for his mane up by his ears. And it's a little darker and a little bluer for the mane underneath his chin. Now we've got his arm to contend with. Not only do we need to paint his arm, but we also need to make the area just underneath his mane. I guess that would be the top of his arm or his shoulder there, just a bit darker than his mane also. And I'm just blending in a little bit of color. I don't want these hard lines that are setting there. I want most of that color to stay. So I'm letting them almost dry and then going back in and rubbing off some of that color, just enough to take off the hard edge, not much else. All right, here I'm working on that front arm, still working to get that banding on his arm. There we go. And continuing, just going back, putting it on all the hair on his mane. It's looking a bit dark. It'll lighten up. There is some Payne's gray in that gray. As you know, Payne's gray lightens much lighter when it's dry. But much of that gray I did blend myself, so we'll see how it goes. His eyes just a mixture of sap green and yellow ochre there. He's mostly sleeping, so his eyes aren't wide open. We're going to come back and put some pupils in a little bit. But I think he's starting to look pretty good. Good enough that I am going to attempt to put in a background now. So I'm going to mix up some alizarin crimson and gamboge together. That's going to be my orange. You notice I have not made any of the rumples on that curtain or blanket or whatever that cat's laying on. We're going to come back and do that by hand, just with a trick of dark and light. So I'm putting my orange on. I'm not mixing it too much. I want a lot of the mixing to take place on the paper so that even if we don't have good folds when we paint it later, we're still going to get some nice color mixing and some interesting detail through there. I'm just using this big fat 1-inch flat brush just so I can lay the paint on really fast. There we go. It takes hardly any time at all with that nice big brush. There we go. Just dab some of that off the side. So I'm looking at this now, and his body looks a little too light. I'm going to put a little bit of color on there. Just let me dry this off real quick. Only a little bit is what we need. There we go. Just about done. And one last pass, round, round, round. Get all the corners. And I think we're good. Whoa, whoa, blew it right off the page. All right, one more shot for you. There we go. Now we're done. Let's get back to this cat. Here's how I'm going to paint the ruffles in this. We know that the folds or ruffles or whatever you want to call them are just dark spots. So I can lay in some dark spots like this, and as I blend them out on one side, they'll look like folds in the blanket or whatever this is. Curtain, blanket, towel, whatever this cat's laying on. We got a couple on the top side of him up here too. It looks like it was in a photo studio and it went right up a wall. So we'll just drop that on, make that look like a little wrinkle in there. And one over here. I think that's pretty good. There we go. I'm not sure I should have done that on both sides. Should maybe have just blended that water out, blended the paint out on one side here, maybe not both. Let's see how it looks now. Looks a little better. There we go. On first look anyways, it definitely looks like there are some ridges in there. Something going on. Gives it a little bit extra texture. There we go. All right, now back to the cat's body here. I'm going to put in a little paint. I don't want too much detail back here. I don't want too much texture, so I'm going to leave it a flat wash back there and just let it blend on out. Not too much. That's probably plenty. We just need to darken that up a little bit. It was too light in comparison to the rest of the cat. Here we go. I've got the small brush out, which means we're starting to put in some details, some very fine hairs in here. Just drawing them out. Good, good, good. There we go. Okay. Always good to have his mouth on there and blend the bottom side of that mouth in with his chin. It'll just naturally give it a little bit of shadow in there. He's got lots of feathers in here, so I'm putting some dark lines in along with some lighter lines in his mane. There's his pupils. And he's got just a bit of dark right around his eyes. I'm going to put just a bit of gray there and let it sit. All right, retouching his mouth and his nose. Now, you've seen me do this before. This is about the only time I use white. It's when I have to do something like this. Couple of whiskers here and there. It's not just grab and pull out ever so slightly. Got some white hair in his ears. Got some on his mane. There we go, just giving a little bit of detail. Those whiskers didn't quite come out like I wanted. White in his eye for a reflection, and there we go, there's our cat. Looks similar, it's close. All right, thank you so much. I'm going to sign this and call it good. I hope you enjoyed this video. Give a like, a thumbs up, and subscribe to my channel if you would. Thanks so much.